Joining me now is Major General retired Denis Thompson, former NATO task force commander, to discuss what we have heard from the Prime Minister these last couple of days. Good morning to you. Always great to see you. So let's begin with Carney's surprise visit to Ukraine yesterday on Independence Day. What signal do you think the Prime Minister was trying to send to Ukraine and to Russia?
Good morning, Marcia. I think really he just wanted to firm up the fact that Canada does stand with Ukraine. And one of his expressions, which I certainly took to heart, was that we cannot simply trust and verify what Russia's up to, but we must deter and fortify. And I thought that that was quite a clever twist of phrases. And then he went on to speak about security guarantees, about being part of the coalition of the willing, and that we would participate in whatever that turns out to be. But at the moment, the events on the battlefield and the Russian reaction haven't lent themselves to the progressing of any ceasefire or, for that matter, peace agreements.
Well, no, and that's a good point. And let's stay there for just a moment, because what have you seen since the two summits, the Alaska summit with Putin and Trump and the meeting last week in Washington? And by asking what you have seen, what action does Russia continue to take in their strikes against Ukraine since that time?
Nothing's changed, and that's not a surprise. Mr. Putin showed up in Alaska. He didn't give anything away, and unfortunately, Mr. Trump basically didn't push back on him. Now, that might change in the coming days because, of course, he's hardly predictable, Mr. Trump, that is. But Mr. Putin's position has been clear from the start. He wants all of Ukraine, and he's going to continue to push for that. And that means that this issue is going to be decided on the battlefield. And until Ukraine's fortunes reverse, Mr. Putin and Russia are not going to be brought to the table. And that is, unfortunately, the state of affairs. And so any talk of a coalition of willing or boots on the ground or forces inside of Ukraine is going to have to wait until Russia is brought to the table.
How much will the $2 billion that Canada is sending to Ukraine, spending on defense, how much will that help Ukraine?
That's incredibly important. There are some pieces of kit that the Ukrainians cannot duplicate, and they are doing wonderful work with drones, etc. But in particular, it is surface-to-air missile interceptors. In this regard, I'm talking about the Patriot interceptor, which is important to take down ballistic missiles. Ukraine has the assets that can take out the drones that are being launched against their cities. They have a number of surface-to-air missile systems that can take out other less capable systems, but they need the Patriot to knock down things like the Iskander, and other Russian ballistic missiles. So Canada's contribution to the NATO fund, which pays for these things, or obviously can only be constructed in the U.S., is an important contribution, and that is the lion's share of the $2 billion that was committed at the G7 conference. And other commitments by Canada in terms of armored vehicles, et cetera, all of it helps. Mm-hmm. And this is what Europe and the West needs to continue to do in order to give Ukraine the leg up.
So what do you make of Canada not ruling out eventually having boots on the ground in Ukraine?
Again, if we can get to the point where there's a peace agreement, and if that peace agreement includes security guarantees that are from inside of Ukraine, then what I would foresee is something similar to a force that we used in Bosnia, which was called I-4, and one that was used in Kosovo that was called K-4. But basically, these were not deter and fortify forces, but they were deter and verify forces. And that's a function that Canada could perform because we've done it before. But that's at the high end. At the lower end, you're talking about the support that Mr. McGuinty was just mentioning on the lead up to this interview, which is essentially logistics support, financial support, helping them re-equip, and continuing the training missions that we have been a part of ever since 2014 or 15, being involved in training somewhere north of 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers before the war, and some 3,000 during the war as part of Operation Unifier.
Major General Denis Thompson, former NATO task force commander, appreciate your time with us this morning.